Welcome to today's episode, the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. It is Friday, July 11th, the day that To Kill a Mockingbird was first published in 1960, and to celebrate, what kills the most mockingbirds annually, or in fact, just birds in general?
Cats?
Cats, yes. Do you know how many they kill?
No.
3 billion. Do you know how many birds there are in the world?
No.
About 50 billion. So they whack off about how many, 5% of the entire
3
population?
billion is crazy.
It's like somewhere between 1.4 and 4 billion. They haven't gotten an actual study count of exactly how many they kill. But today, in celebration of that, we are reviewing our first anime series since Lazarus, Nyaight of the Living Cat.
It's also our first Crunchyroll series that we've ever done.
I wasn't
Obviously,
sure.
it airs in Japan,
Mhm.
but in terms of for US audiences, this is only really on Crunchyroll.
Yeah, and we all remember Nyan Cat, right? Of the early 2010s, the origin of the Nya word, I didn't even know. So I thought that was just like a clever little meme that everybody knew, the rainbow Pop-Tart cat, And instead, the Nya is the sound that in Japan they say that cats make. So it's like the meow sound.
It's an onomatopoeia for meow.
So Nyaight of the Living Cat. Everything Becomes a Cat is the name of the first episode.
That's different from the volume the issue because I read the first volume of this. The first issue is called Everything Turns to Cat.
Okay, I mean, it's close enough, but when you say you read the first volume, how much further does it cover than the first episode?
Well, the first episode, even though it's only 25 minutes, goes through the first 94 pages. That's half the manga.
So that's more than when we've done other comic book versions that they've been able to go through? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, from my understanding of it, there's going to be 12 episodes this season.
Yes.
And I think there's been 6 volumes released of the manga, which came out in May 2021. So if they go with half a manga per episode, then that means that by the end of this season, they should basically be caught up. At least that's what I would think.
That would make sense. Okay, so 90% of the world has been turned into cats because of a virus. The change is near instantaneous. As soon as you make contact with an infected feline, you turn into a cat. In episode 1, we watch 3 surviving humans make their way through a complex of stores and tunnels, and one of the members gets turned into a cat.
Almost immediately.
The remaining 2, Kunagi and Kaoru, make their way to a car and they escape for now. And then we get a backstory where they used to work in a cat cafe. So they were kind of at the center of everything when it went down. There was a guy who came into the cat cafe, big lover of cats, was petting him, was giving him treats. And then suddenly he starts to eat that treat because he's really, really turning really quickly into a cat. I guess he was patient 0, maybe. I know they went through patient 0. I wasn't sure if that was him.
I was just surprised that cat cafes actually existed. I didn't think
sure.
that was a thing.
Do you want to know some names of them, or do you know them already?
I don't know them.
Crumbs and Whiskers, that's one of them. There's Mount Pernon. There's Meow Mason or Patriot Possibilities. So yeah, they're all over the world.
But especially in Japan, because Japan loves cats. In fact, this whole entire, if it's not obvious, this series is supposed to be satirizing Japan's love of cats.
I have a lot of questions about this series just based on the pilot episode.
Yeah.
Are these cats evil, or are they being turned into cats and then just kind of like group mentality going after the remaining humans? It seems like they might just want to be loved. They're not actually hurting the humans. The first guy we saw turn into a cat, I thought we were going to see him ripped to shreds like a zombie, that was the joke, but instead they just touched him and then he sort of turned into a cat.
That was my question as well, because at the very beginning, Tanishi, he's turned into a cat. I thought it was because they bit them, but no, it's just if you pet the cat.
Yeah, it's almost like an allergy. So are they aware that they were once human once they've been turned? Was this written by a cat lady?
It's actually funny. This was written by someone named Hawkman, but I tried to get any information on this person that wrote it. I wasn't able to get any. There's not even a blue hyperlink on Wikipedia.
Okay, but you did read the first volume. Is anyone immune?
No, in fact, I would say that's what I like so much, because I rewatched the episode after I read it with kind of the manga to the side, and it was exactly the same.
Yeah, they were so
difference.
accurate.
The only thing that was different was that the manga reminded me a lot of the Iternon Uzumaki, because that was black and white. Here, it's color. But
Okay.
when it comes to like
It was hand drawn too, right?
yeah, hand drawn. It did, and in this TV series, there's some CGI moments apparently with the cats.
Okay.
But like aside from the dialogue, definitely the scenes, panels from the manga, I knew it was going to be almost exactly the same, and it was.
Other questions. Where are all the dogs?
We don't see
You would
dogs,
think
do
that
we?
if there were going to be, because right now I think there's like 600 million cats in the world, but if suddenly there was another 7 billion or 8 billion, or I think 90% of the population, so around 8 billion, would be turned into cats at this point, you would think the dogs would be going crazy, right? Is your age converted into cat years when you change? So say you're 70 years old, do you turn into like, what, I don't know what the thing is, like a 10-year-old cat or something?
Well, I know that, like, apparently there's still supposed to be, like, a shred of humanity in them, right? Because we
Okay,
even see Tanishi,
he
like,
still, like,
recognize it.
knew that they were friendly, but I don't know if he knows enough to know that he was once a human. Do you get any say of what type of cat that you become? Say, if you shaved your entire body, would you then become one of those naked Sphinx cats? Or if you maybe painted yourself, could you get stripes? Like, what are the rules here?
Maybe it's the cat that you pet. I know that there are 4 issues in the first volume, and every single issue ends
That's interesting.
it ends with a cat. Like, it ends with a cat and information about that cat. I think
So,
there was, like,
so
an
you're like,
orange
you become a
tabby.
clone of the cat that you, kind of like a vampire thing where it's like you're connected to the one that turned you.
Yeah.
That's funny. Is this how BoJack World begins? That was my next question, because it's like it would make, Captain Furry Face or whatever his name
We
was.
meow meow fuzzy face.
There you
But
go.
we also never hear any of the cats speak.
Not yet. I'm just saying this is the beginning of a new evolution. What happens if you had a cat allergy and then you got turned into a cat? Would you just would you hate your life at that point?
Maybe
Would
you
you
might
just be
love it because you
sneezing the whole
probably
time?
won't get allergies anymore.
And then the deepest question I could think of was, what would happen if Professor McGonagall from Harry Potter, if she was turned into a cat when she was already transfigured into a cat? Because, like, she could do that. She could turn
You
herself
just
into a,
become a bigger cat.
she just becomes a double cat. These are the questions that J.K. Rowling really should be tackling, and weighing in on. Okay, and then yeah, so cat cafes are real. What are the comparisons that we can throw at this thing? I would say Exploding Kittens,
Yeah,
because
I
that
didn't
was
even have that
also
one.
very cat centric, and you had Cat God, and he was full of himself, and he was white, a white cat with a big beard.
One of the ones it had for me was it was almost straight out of the Doctor Who episode called The New Earth, where in the first episode of the
Oh yeah,
second
yeah.
season, it was David Tennant's Doctor. It takes place after the apocalypse, but people have been turned into like weird cat people, and then they're zombies and trying to turn other people into cat
I'm
people as well.
sure I'm sure if I went back and watched that episode, it would look so old. But I
It came
remember
out in
when it
2006.
I know, but I remember when I saw it around 2007, I was like, "This looks really good for a CGI show." Like the costumes and stuff, this looks way better than like the 70s and 80s Doctor Who version. But
But like
now it would probably look so clunky.
the second that Tanishi was turned into a cat, I was like, "That's lit." Because all, if I remember the episode correctly, all they have to do is touch, like in the Doctor Who episode, all they have to do is touch someone that's not a cat, and they automatically turn into it.
Is that what it was? I don't even remember the Doctor Who rules, but in this, it was interesting because, yeah, we saw the one guy turn really quickly because he was bombarded. He was like an avalanche of cats fell on top of him. However, the brother at the very end, so Kaoru has a brother who ran the cat cafe, and as
Gaku,
soon as what?
Gaku, right?
Okay, yes, that's his name. He had an
The
interesting voice.
barista, yeah,
Ye
Gaku, I think.
Yes, so he and them were all escaping at the very end, and then he touched one of the cats, or one of the cats came and ran up into his arms, and at first it was like, "Oh, did he not get infected?" And then as he's running, he starts to go a little obsessive with this little, dangly collar piece in the back of Kunagi's, like, hair, and it's revealed that he is slowly, surely turning into a cat. So I guess it does depend on how much contact you might have, maybe a couple minutes worth of humanity left before you change, or it could be like the Spider-Man thing where it's like some people were instantly snapped away and Spider-Man stayed for like a minute or so.
That was interesting because the second issue, doesn't end with that scene. They ended it a couple scenes early from the issue, and you would think that if they would go like kind of to the middle, they would end with the second issue. But yeah, the only scene that I felt like that was kind of different was the mid-credits scene. I don't think that was in the
Oh,
manga at all.
yeah, so this show likes to use humor to its benefit. In fact, like, the premise of this show
Right.
is based on the silliness that it's not a zombie thing. It's like, given the option between, because I just saw 28 Years Later and then also seeing The Last of Us and Walking Dead. I think I'd prefer to be turned into a cat than a zombie or one of those other mushroom freaks, you know?
Would you be able to survive this zombie apocalypse, though? Could you not pet cats?
Oh, so that was like the big thing with Kunagi. I thought maybe he had been infected with something that makes him love cats more, but
No,
no,
he's
he's
just
just that's his
automatically that
character.
way.
He has amnesia. We don't know exactly where he's from. I have a hidden theory that I think he just used to be a cat. Like as many people as turning into cats, I think he was the first cat to turn into a
I
human,
think it's just the
and
opposite way
and he
around.
may be part of the reason why everybody else is turning into cats. Who knows? The other thing is that you have to keep in mind is toxoplasmosis is that real parasite that like 30% of the world has.
Right.
And I think like 20 some percent of the US has, and it comes from like cat feces or being around cats too often or something like that. And it doesn't really have a cure. The little parasite can incubate in your body in like cysts and stuff and come out at different times. However, most people are asymptomatic. I thought maybe that would be something that inspired this comic, is just because like it could be in anyone at any time.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that they were just trying obviously, this was made by someone. I feel like the manga and the series was made by people that are all cat lovers. In
Of
fact, I
course.
think I read something that said the production of this series, everyone owns a cat or something like that.
I'm not surprised, and I'll get more into the silliness and petty or the funny stuff
Yeah,
about
do
it.
you have any more comparison?
I'd also have more comparisons, but I did also want to mention that there would be some insane problems if everybody were to turn into a cat. New Zealand knows the most about this. No more birds. Like we were talking about at the beginning. If you have suddenly an influx of like thousands of percentages more cats, those birds would go bye-bye, and then you would see a damaged ecosystem. There would be more pests outside. Ticks would go nuts, especially with the increased cats. And then as far as realism is concerned, we saw a number of times where Kunagi is outrunning the cats.
Yeah.
That's impossible.
No, that
Cats
is
can go 30 miles per hour. What are
oh,
you talking about? Everybody would have been taken over by a cat immediately. It's over.
in ancient times, cats were brought to Japan to control rodents. So it's funny how that would like because now there are so many cats in Japan,
Hmm.
probably not that many rodents, but yeah, I agree with you. The birds would be a problem. Obviously, Hello Kitty was created in Japan, and also cats possess qualities that Japan resonates with, like independence, grace, calm demeanor, and highly admired.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and even in Egyptian times, they used to consider cats gods and stuff. There's no question that people like cats, or there might be dog people who just hate the show.
They're a symbol of good luck. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also, like, the other funny moments I would say is that they don't even put a year on this thing. It's just 20XX. So that
Right.
kind of goes into like it could be any time, right?
So that is from the manga. The thing that was interesting was, I believe when we get the backflash, they just say before the Nyan or whatever, but actually
The neon-demic. Yeah.
in the comic they say it's October 5th, 20XX.
Yeah, that's
So
what's funny. Is like, why give the thing unless it was supposed to be 2020? Like maybe the XX equals 2020, but they just I don't know. They
I don't
wrote
know,
it
man.
clever. And then the other comparisons, Extraordinary, that British show where the guy can turn into a cat or turn back from a cat into a human, like that's his power. There's Animals, which was that TV show that ran a few years ago where I
That
don't
was
think people turned into pets, or into animals, but animals took over the
that
world.
was also animated, right?
It was definitely or it was also animated. It was run by the guy from The League, Mark Duplass. That
Mhm.
was the Duplass brothers, I think, made it. And then obviously Uzumaki. Uzumaki is all
Uzumaki?
about how everybody's turning into a spiral, and this is all about how everybody's turning into a cat, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. Also, when you get later into the manga, and I assume the TV series, it feels a lot like The Mist because survivors kind of end up in a grocery store. It reminded me actually of Murderbot, mostly because this is not supposed to be taken seriously at all. And in issue 3, a guy fights off a flurry of cats with a cat toy. In this TV series, I felt the same thing. And with Murderbot, it reminds me because of how silly that premise is, and also in the TV show about like an excited a robot that goes on exciting adventures, but really just cares about watching TV shows.
Yeah, and I would say Kunagi is so distanced himself from just a normal human that his narration, when he's like so obsessed with I have to let the cats inside, I have to pet them. I mean, people can. It's almost childish in a way.
Well,
His
it was so funny when he walked out there with the suit, and then instead of just being able to throw the cat, he couldn't even do that. He had to let it
He was
down very
apologizing to the
easily.
cats. They were explaining how cats hate water. They were showing you a grid of a cat and where it's allowed to be pet. It's
Yeah.
funny because not all cats are the same, but that grid made it seem like they were. And then uh, Kaoru is I think she's supposed to be sort of a love interest to him because they did have that moment in the shop where then she slapped him. People like to hit each other a lot in anime. And then
Well, she slapped him because he, like,
he
picked up.
complimented her.
Oh, that's the part that you're talking about. I thought you were talking about when he picked up the person in the
Yeah,
background.
but it's such like a meme thing where like a girl gets complimented in an anime and suddenly they like blush like crazy, but instead she just got mad, which was funny. Animals, Uzumaki, Exploding Kittens, extraordinary. It's a funny show. However, I would never say it was like hilarious. It wasn't one of those ones where I'm just bursting out, you know?
Ah, okay.
Were you?
I mean, like, I thought that just the premise itself was so silly that I had a fun time watching it the entire time.
What would you give it?
I would probably give it, like, a 7 out of 10.
A 7 out of 10 for the first episode. I'm gonna go lower. I'm gonna say probably this is mid-tier to me as far as anime is concerned. It's very common. I'd say 5 out of 10. It's not as good as Sakamoto Days or Lazarus, I think, because it's got too much of a gimmick. Everything else, like with Sakamoto Days, they also had a gimmick, but then they had an overarching story that seemed really interesting. The overweight convenience store clerk is actually a retired legendary hitman who is consistently pulled back into his old life, or a task force of 5 weirdos are trying to stop an impending end of humanity by tracking down some mad scientist.
Yeah,
That's Lazarus.
if they needed a vaccine, they should have just gone Skinner from Lazarus to make one for this thing. It's funny you mentioned Sakamoto Days because Kunagi, the person who voiced him, was actually in Sakamoto Days for a couple of
That makes
episodes.
sense. Yeah.
But do you know who Takashi Mike is?
It sounds familiar, but yeah, I might not.
Yeah, well, you might not know him from name, but he is kind of a legendary director in Japan. His films can be very controversial because they can be very violent, bizarre, and dramatic.
He's not the Uzumaki guy, though, right?
No.
Okay.
But then he can also make family-friendly movies, apparently.
So like Beethoven's Third or something.
He did a 3D remake of Harakiri, which came out in 2011, but he is best known for directing Audition and the original One Missed Call, not the American version.
No, I know what you're saying.
The
Yeah,
Japan thing.
horror movies, for sure.
So he had his name attached there, and then
I think that they brought him aboard because he knows horror so well that he can just make fun of the tropes really, really easy. So again, probably my favorite part of the episode is at the beginning where we're seeing the cats run up to these people and you're fully expecting them with claws out to just shred them apart. And you're like, oh man, this is going to be ugly. And instead, it's just this guy, like his hand goes up and then suddenly it like transforms into a paw and then he's meowing and you're like, wow.
No, I absolutely. And also Tomohiro Kamatani, he's the series director for this. He's worked on a lot of famous animations, like including Death Note and One Punch Man.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that the animation looked good for it as well.
Right. I'm not saying it's worse than any anime that's out there, but it's definitely like once you get the understanding of what the show is, I think I wouldn't be surprised with where the show goes.
Yeah.
However, I can't say that for sure. There's 12 episodes. Maybe I'll tune in to the last one to see if like everybody's still a cat.
The series does not have a lot of reviews out for it, and I think the manga is still going. Like I believe that the 6
it's a fairly new one.
Yeah, again, May 2021. But IGN, it seems like every place that's watched it has given it a good review. IGN gave the series an 8 out of 10 and said that it's a parody anime that is adorable as it is fun to watch. Bloody Disgusting said it was the most wildest and original anime of 2025, and Yahoo Entertainment said it was their favorite comedy of the year.
You know, it sort of in a weird way reminds me of Hell Motel because, yes, that's more of a horror thing, but it is making fun of horror too.
Right, slashers. And also, this is actually very interesting because Crunchyroll is in a little bit of a problem right now. Even though they have 75% of all animes or something very close to it, actually Netflix has been beating it out in terms of anime streaming, ever since very late last year.
Well, Netflix has been buying a bunch and they've been making like Devil May Cry, right? And then Lazarus, and then like there's been a few others for sure. Castlevania.
Netflix earned more money from anime streaming than Crunchyroll or Hulu last year. And the anime streaming revenue stands for over $2 billion, double that at Crunchyroll. And also, it seems like millennials and Gen Z prefer Netflix for anime.
Maybe so, but it still feels like it's a growing, like it's like K-pop. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Oh, the next one we do is on Dexter, right?
Dexter,
the remake?
Resurrection.
The second remake? All right. We'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.